Hello everyone, Happy New Year, and welcome to another cycle of accretion, because that's what a year is. It's like going through time, is accreting energy. So I thought, what better way to start the cycle of accretion with reminding you or insisting, highlighting, stressing a few things about the importance of cleaning oneself, especially in this time. But before I do that, I actually am going to start with a bit of a story, well, a bit more background. When I was a kid, I like to spend my time around adults, well, grown-ups. I like my friends, of course. I spent time with my friends. I played with them, whatever. I had fun, whatever, doing that, but it was not enough. So after I would do that, have my friends' time, whatever, fun time with them, I always like to just hang out with my aunts, my older cousins, their friends, etc. Why was that? Because for me, most things that people talked about, or whatever, friends my age, it wasn't interesting. I mean, it was fun for a while, but there was this other part of myself that was not at that level, just a kid. So I would say, like, okay, I was mature since I was a kid. And that is true, because my mind was already working in a different way and wanted a different type of information, if you want, content, if you will, in this reality that would help me grow. And ever since I was aware of myself, I always liked to learn and understand things, people, how things work. So being around them, around grown-ups, adults, allowed me to learn about life by observing them or participating sometimes in their conversations, which allowed me to be more of myself, actually, than being more of myself with my friends. My friend knew me as okay, she's talented, because those things were already apparent, those things were obvious even since I was a kid. So I was doing all those things, so I was like, oh, she's the one with whatever, this kind of talent, and she does these things. But I couldn't talk about the things that I was really, really passionate and interested. So those things I would do with grown-ups, with certain people in my life, my aunt, whatever, certain people in my life back then. But even this at some point became not satisfying anymore, because as I was growing up and I was expecting, like, to have something to learn from these older people, or I thought old people, or whatever, more experienced than I was, that somehow they would give me also guidance and things in life that would help me navigate this life better. And as I was going through this process, as like growing up, like being a teenager, and also dealing with some things in my family, well, health-wise, but other things as well, I realized that most adults are not really grown-ups, as like in the right sense of the word, because most people carry these like traumas, dramas, stories that affect them throughout their lives and never really notice, or until now most people never noticed those things affected them, how they are, how they behave, how they interact with the people. They never really noticed these things. And I was already noticed those things, and like, why do you do that? Why do you say that? Don't you see that you should do this way? So early on in my life, I found myself in a position where I was actually taking care of other people, guiding other people. I was being the light in certain situations in life for my families and friends and whatever other things. And nothing was and this wasn't because I really wanted to do that and whatever. I was like I was saying in the previous video, I spent my life working as like developing my skills, because that was my passion. That was like what I felt like naturally I needed to express. So actually for me this was annoying that I had to educate other people and not spend time with what I really liked the most, which was creating, doing those things, whatever, exploring those parts of myself, and that part that brought me joy, and also felt like I have to contribute like this to the world. But of course, growing up, I realized, okay, this is another important part. Well, all of this now makes sense, but back then for me, this was very frustrating. Why am I supposed to like educate these people when they were supposed to help me guide me at this stage in my life, and I'm doing that for them while I'm actually figuring out life, as in like navigating the this like shaky waters, like unstable waters in life, going to school, whatever, people, certain expectations, stress and whatever. So it's like that was very frustrating, and I never really had time to like be a normal kid, and I don't regret that because it helped me. I was always like responsible, and in the sense like I took care of other people naturally. I'm a caretaker, so I never really had to learn to care for other people. But I felt like I'm not doing what I want to do or naturally what I'm supposed to do. Well, this makes sense now, but back then it didn't. Also, another thing that I didn't like and stressed me was the fact that like I was in high school, and already the demands at my high school, whatever, that stage in my life in school was very demanding and stressful. And I was a good student, but like the demands of whatever my school were like really high and whatever stressful. So I would never leave the house without having like a good song in my head. It's like me and my sister and my mother, we would have like breakfast together, and we would turn on the TV or the radio, whatever. And just before getting out, leaving the house, I would never do that unless I had a good tune in my head that I would like sing to it like in my head, and have it like, how should I put this? It was like something that would insulate me against the toxicity of the day that was awaiting for me, the stress, the things, the unpleasant things that I had to deal with. That for me were like those rules, those things that had nothing. I felt like, but this, whatever, I don't know, this imposes on life, this is whatever, but I had to deal with it. So I wasn't really rebelling against that, because I knew that if I want to move through this life and advance and do the things that I wanted to do, I knew that I had to follow certain rules and I had to do certain things. So I wasn't the type of like rebel without a cause. I'm a rebel, but I'm a rebel with a cause. So in this sense, I was very, very stable, very very adult-like with everything that I did in this sense. But it wasn't easy, and I didn't like it because it felt like I had to shrink. I couldn't be myself fully, and I had to like fit this like box that a certain professor, teacher would have for me, or whatever certain expectation. That wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but I felt like whatever I wasn't really accepted or acceptable in certain things, in certain regards. So I had to like shrink and like contract, so I can make other people feel comfortable around me, or like not disturb anyone's whatever opinions or things or whatever. And as soon as I would get home, I feel like I had to like fine, I have a moment to breathe and be myself. So that was very stressful. Plus, I never really liked the fact that I would see the interactions, not just adults, but like everything in my life. But especially I saw this around adults, that this instability, emotional instability in certain situations, how certain things trigger them easily when somebody said this or that. And I was never really somebody to be triggered easily by, I don't know, by the emotional whatever level. Judgment hurt me, but I learned to like not be affected as much or certain things at all. But this took time. But like how people would react to certain things, for me was like, why would you do that? It's like you have to understand that when there's certain things that are very stressful, whatever, you have to focus. So the more stressful something was for me, the better I focused, or I forced myself to focus. So in this sense, I developed the skills of like being good in working in very stressful situation when somebody needed to have a very cool head. So I was always the person to have that cool head to do certain things, even if I didn't like it, but I became good at that because I had no choice. So those things really bothered me, and it's like, why am I telling you all these things, and what this has to do with cleaning oneself and the importance and all the things that I'm repeating and stressing all the time, is that early on in my life, I've noticed that how the climate and, as I said, the interactions between people were not necessarily like bad, but like unpleasant. Like you would never know, you wouldn't know where the next bomb will go off. Like I always felt like it's a minefield, and I had to tread very carefully because I wouldn't know when the next thing will just go off, and I would have to like sail through whatever, find my way, so I wouldn't like trigger the next thing, because I wanted to get my life and my things done as well. So for me, that was like really, really stressful. I think that's the first thing that I noticed about this life here, this instability, the emotional instability. And I understand why things are the way they are like this. Like why can I not really like count on certain people or whatever but they expect that they can count on me. These are older people, but I'm a kid or whatever, but I cannot really count on them because they're going to have, I don't know, their whatever tantrums and things and whatever. So that for me was like, what the hell is wrong with you? So I just, I had to keep my mind very focused toward how I'm going to deal with this and move through and finally end up to a point where I feel safe, because this whole thing made me feel actually in life very unsafe. And that stressed me, and as I said, like I have a sensitive nervous system. So that was a lot of thing that was very uncomfortable for me and still is, but I deal with this much, much better because, well, things have changed, I have changed. So I noticed this instability and this these waves and whatever. And it wasn't until like later in life when I understood why everything is like this, and I understood about the distortion, and I started to see it and I started to experience it. Wasn't just anymore something that I found out at some point from a body of knowledge, but then I started to like experience those things for real, and those truths, and certain things started to express more and more through me. And you see, this is here people talk about the emotions and the emotional plane, whatever, heal this or that, and they don't understand that actually the emotional plane, emotional body, whatever, is everything that you see. This is the level that you see, because the consciousness is always one level above, so you see what's below. Like I said, there's also technology, you see what's below. So everything that's here, it's below where the actual level of consciousness is, well, for everyone, because everyone sees whatever they can, so whatever. So the lack of energy meant that things were very tight, and these things could attach to you. When somebody would be triggered so easily by something because there was no space to see how actually in reality that situation was and how you could actually handle it much better. So until very recently, these things have been very, very limited, and that's why we've seen all this like fights, wars between people, groups, nations, etc., and whatever. But also this was necessary in the sense that it had to trigger certain like awareness through this like contrast, so certain things can be realized and move forward. So it's not just whatever conflict for the sake of conflict or because of lack of energy, but this is how things have moved doesn't like to progress, to heal, to accrete the energy. And to this day, I feel like, I see around me, and I still see a lot of people that have no idea. Even in like this area where people talk about spirituality, whatever, or mindfulness, they still have no idea that what they see, everything that it's being seen, is actually the emotional body. It's not just your, but like the reality, because, well, it's part of you. It's an expression, whatever. So whatever you see, it's that level. And this level needs the most help right now. And that's why I insist on like cleaning, because right now, as we progress, as the consciousness that's already one level above is moving even further, whatever, at the speed that it can, because not everyone is at the same place in cleanliness, in awareness, codes, things like that. So this is like very, it's like that's why everyone has a certain level or express a certain level. It's not everyone the same. And also it's not meant necessarily because we're supposed to like be like a symphony, and certain things have to do certain things, other things are supposed to do whatever. Anyways, so if you will, in the sense, yes, there is a hierarchy, but it's more of like in the bodies, like things that have to work together, so they express something. So this can work well, whatever. In this case, the body. So the cleaning is so necessary at this point, because there is no moving forward. I mean, you have to get rid of, dissolve the untruth around you, and this untruth means not necessarily as lies, but the beliefs, the things that you thought that, this is hurtful, this is whatever, have to be dissolved and have to be understood for what they were, and actually extract what the actual essence, the truth behind all those things. You can't just stay at the level where those things hurt you, or certain beliefs where those things actually basically limit your awareness. So if you're always under this constant like pressure from those beliefs, those emotional triggers, you can't move past it, you entertain them, you create this like eternal cycle of like repetition of those things. So the mind is entrained in those things all the time, so you can't move past it and like transcend, like see a little above whatever. So the cleaning process that I insist on, I made this video years ago when I was talking about tapping, and I'm showing you certain points where you're supposed to use, so you can release certain things. But also the most important thing is to ask the right questions. Always have to ask the right question, and observe, be vigilant every day of your life. This is not some 5 minutes meditation or whatever and blah, blah. This is a lifestyle. It's like starting like breathing. It's like a second nature. So if you don't understand that, then well, that's the thing that you need to understand. This is not just something like pretty thing where I'm going to a meditation class or whatever, and then I'm not going to be aware of this anymore. It doesn't work like that. Also, I know that there's a lot of people in this whatever spiritual whatever area, people interested in aliens and whatever, all this, what it's encompassing this area, are waiting to be saved by other beings, by whatever. And I believe me, I was busy and obsessed with other civilizations and things and technologies and what's going on, this and ships and blah blah. And that has its place, as I said, if you're still on the seeker path. But when you start to do the work, when you start to understand, and certain things happen to you, it's not just certain experiences that show you that there is more, but like real work, when you start to see what the real work does, you understand, you start to see that if you want to really be at the level of like interaction with other civilization, higher civilization, more elevated, advanced civilizations, not just technological, but you know what I mean, an awareness, you have to express a certain level of awareness. And how are you going to do that if you're still this? If you're still under the pressure, this like thing, this emotional weight, the garbage, emotional, mental, whatever, sexual things, whatever, that still press on your awareness. So you're still a prisoner of these things. So it doesn't matter if you do 5 minutes of meditations and then you forget about the fact that you have to like always be observant and what's happening inside. I'm not necessarily saying like it's an obsessive thing, but like naturally, that's why it's weird for me. It's like, that's why I can seem intense for some people, but for me this is like a second nature. I don't even think about it because I just notice. Because naturally, well, as I said, this also has to do with the cause that you have and what somebody is actually doing through that, and helps other by spreading that whatever in the field. So this has to become like a second nature, where you become aware of what's going on inside you all the time, or certain moments where this triggered me, why? And ask the question, the right question, why? What's behind that? And go as deep as you can. Ask as many questions and until you find those things. What was the reason? Why I have this reason? What's the story behind this reason? There's many layers, and you have to go as deep as you can. And as I said, you can't always fix something or finish something in one session. You will always make progress, but you have to have patience. You have to understand it's a process. And as you do this cleaning process and you create more space inside you, and you start to see results, and you start to see certain things that until a certain point they weren't really available, and you wouldn't even think that would be possible to see whatever other things, and express inside yourself another level of awareness, because that's what I'm talking about when I speak these things. I'm not talking about just from some random experience that I have from time to time. It's from another level of awareness that it's coming through, and this is what's coming. It has to express for more and more people in time, obviously. So when you do that, you realize that the most important work is the actual cleaning work, because this also transforms you. You start to see, okay, so when I leave these things, there is a space, you learn about certain truths, but also understand that you can become more. But this happens when you clean, you get back more of your power, more of your freedom. So basically you become more authentic, more in express more of the truth, the core truth that is like from the original thought that expresses through it from source. So that's why it's so important to do this. It's not just I'm like, oh, pretty whatever Zen blah blah vegetable whatever thing. No, this is something very precise, something for real, that it has certain results that change your awareness, change what you experience, change everything. And then you get to a level where, yes, you can have interactions and with other beings from a level of equality, as in or semi or whatever, but where you can actually have a conversation with somebody that expresses that level of, higher levels of awareness, because things work and express differently than what's here, than what most people understand as life, and whatever they define as life, identity, how things should be. So when you move beyond that, there's other things. So only then you can expect. So you will have conversations with an equal, with this kind of beings. I'm not talking about those that actually want to take advantage, because there's those things that are as well. They are technologically advanced, but not really say spiritually or whatever, in awareness, higher levels, more advanced. So when you do these things, you also start to build certain abilities in you, and powers and traits and things and powers, or what people go after. As I was saying, it's most people do this because they want to get these powers, this whatever. So look at me, I'm the next magician or whatever, instead of understanding this is more than just that. You have to transform, have to become something else, another form, and this takes work. And those things, those traits, those what do you want? Those abilities, those are the result of work. They are being built. They're not just given to you. It's oh, here's some higher awareness level, and here's some huge power so you can destroy yourself and others. It doesn't work like that. I'm sorry, but it doesn't work like that. It has its fail-safe in there. So that's naive to think that you're going to get those things by not doing anything, or just, oh, help me, somebody's going to save me. It doesn't work like that at all. Or if you think that that's how it's working, and so there are some beings that are doing this everything for you, then those beings and things are not really, how should I say, beneficial for you. Somebody's taking advantage of you and your innocence, your ignorance. So yeah, you have to work. You can't escape. If you want to ascend, you have to do the work. There's no escape from doing that. Nobody's excuse from doing this. And now you will see that the longer you carry these things inside you, these things already affect us. And there's a lot of people that still think that whatever, the virus is doing this and whatever. There's a lot of the neurological problems that certain people express now, and I think that's about the virus. And this is actually as a result of the massive changes in the field that affect our biologies and everyone and everything. And certain biology, certain systems cannot handle this kind of information, and certain things are really weird, and it's not easy for anyone, but it's becoming increasingly harder for those that can't move forward with what's coming because there's no space. There's too much crap and whatever, trash and things like that inside there. So it's not easy, and that's why it's so imperative to understand this. It's just there's nothing more important at this point than the work of cleaning yourself, transforming yourself, and implicitly transforming yourself. Nothing gets more important than this. And I know I'm repeating this and I'm being obnoxious by doing this, but well, I'm supposed to do what I'm supposed to do, so I'm doing my job, whether you like it or not. That's what I'm here for. You have to, I mean, if you really want to move forward for real, you have to do this. There's no easy way forward. I'm sorry if that disappoints you, and it's not glamorous and it's not like, ooh. But it is real, and when you start to have results, you're going to be like, wow, that makes sense. And even if it's hard at times, even if it's like, as I said, when you start to do the real work, you start to encounter opposition, and you understand, what am I doing? Well, why? So when I'm choosing to do this work, all of a sudden I encounter this much opposition or whatever. Although now it's much better, it's more support to this than that, but it's still in the situation where things are like that. Well, because there are things that still want to pull the energy or the time, I mean, the things to in their direction where they need more energy to still exist or have a certain type of reality. And people here are basically a source of food, like their food, how they believe, how they think, how they whatever, all the stuff, it's food for other things. And as long as you stay in that whatever box where you're just, as I said, you're food for other beings and other things, these embodied beings and whatever things. Sorry, the video stopped. So I want to conclude this video by saying that, well, I've already said what I was supposed to say, but you can't avoid this. And the later you postpone things, the harder will be, because of the changes that are increasing in speed and acceleration, and what transpires as their effects, like to our biologies and to our neurological whatever response and things like that. So yeah, the sooner you start, the better it is for you, for everyone. I hope this was interesting. See you next time. Ciao. And then enough energy has been allowed in for certain invention.